Can I just like be myself? Fantastic. Okay, then we have a deal. My name is Felipe Valenzuela. I coming from Chile originally. Since I was 4, now I'm 47, so it's 43 years of music. It was by chance. I was coming from classic music, later on through rock and indie and pop and other kinds of stuff. But because I was playing the piano and the keyboard, and my father was bringing from US like some workstations, understanding how sequence, like layers of music. So I was making rock, with a keyboard, so then I can show it to my other partners from the rock band to perform. But then I have to play, and of course I was never the sensation. I was always like just the keyboard player from a rock band, and then of course I tried to find my way. I didn't feel that I was like going somewhere, and in the meantime I was in the university studying informatics. It was a little period of time when I decided to quit. I sold my piano that was heritage from my grandmother. I still remember when I was like taking it out from the house and stuff, I was like, this is over. After some years, my sister was involved with a friend of ours that was a very good friend of the boyfriend of the sister of Luciano, which was the prodigy of Ricardo. This kind of like very underground, like organic beginning of Perlon, or like I don't know, like a lot of other labels, types of Static and Trave Stuff, or I don't know, like Karloff, Playhouse, Clang Electronics. I jumped from my underground perspective of other genres to underground electronic music. It was like an instant match. I said like, wow, this is really making sense. I was immediately like understanding that what I was trying to do the whole time, it was just needing a bit of a way through. I was immediately in love with it. I said, okay, this is it. I was finishing university, my mother got married again, my parents split, she went to Spain, and I get alone in the house. I start making parties, like crazy. Besides this information that I was receiving from this friend, I was getting fitted, and I was really like absorbing more and more. I started going to these parties, and of course I was start like connecting with other people, and then I was somehow bringing the scene to my hometown. Of course, it was already happening, but I was not aware of, With this vision that was clear, I started like DJing, and I found my place in my hometown, as I said. Some very important platforms like Mutek, for example, was coming to Chile, and they were bringing their first interactions to my hometown, which is the main beach from Chile, So like it's like in front of the sea, in the port, they were making the micro Mutek, which was huge actually. I think it was the biggest, and it was called micro Mutek. I don't know why, but anyways, and then I was able to see all these shows live, like I don't know, like Sense Club was Ricardo with Luciano, or Atom Heart, or Sigo Vertisone was Martin Chop with Pink Ellen and Jorge Gonzalez, Rockin', like Gustavo Cerati with other guys. After this happened, and I was totally mind blown by this kind of a scenario, and I was already being pushed by this sound, following their path, So we're following this sound, which is still in diapers in a country that was hearing all genres. Okay, the good thing of Chile is that in the 90s and early 2000s, we're having clubs for drum and bass, for electronic boogie house music, for UK tech house. We're having clubs for house music, for techno, also for this organic sound, They can all coexist because they were all having their own club, and it was kind of a niche place, where like people go and knows a lot about music. It's more or less like it's happening in Berlin right now, no? Or like since ever, like people go to follow their sound, and they know artists, producers, they know the music, and they come and they want to absorb information regarding that specific sound, This is what happens to me because we arrived at the very end of this era in Chile. The guys that were running Mutek in Chile built a little club at the very end of the port. This club was mainly for this kind of sound, and it was in my hometown. And then I started coming, and insisting like that I should be a resident. And I finally did, and that was the way it started. Even though I have the same age of Luciano, he was also my And besides of a friend, he was also my boss for many years in Cadenza. He was already part of that scene, which I was not part of, you know. And then when I arrived, I was arriving late to that scene. So there was many factors that were like not like giving me the chance to meet them before. But then when I had the chance to understand who they were still like not super famous, but they were already kind of like top notch, you know, like very cool. And then the time put me in this position that I become then someone that was like warm upping for them in parties until I was like playing with them, like maybe like in a back to back or becoming friends. Wow, like so many years have passed by and so many things happen, you know. And of course, I was seeing them as you know, like something really big, you know. So I was a bit shy and I was not expecting that things were going this direction. And until now, I can say that it's nice to be part of this process where like I'm second generation, but I'm still delivering information and trying like to push their basics, you know. Very end of the port club was called Deck Zero. The perspective of the music was quite clear, you know. They wanted this sound, you know, nothing else. It was difficult to the main clubs to understand what minimal was, you know, or this organic sound, or like elegant tech house, you know, or whatever it is, you know, like, I mean, like for some people could be narrow-minded, but for us was like also like a development, you know, want to push this development, you know. And of course, Ricardo, Luciano, Atom Heart, Thomas Melchior, Mike Shannon, you know, everyone played there, you know, like we were like focusing to do this regularly, you know, and to bring cool information, something relatively new, you know, to the scene. In Chile happened something that I think it did not happen in any other country in South America. A lot of information in a small perspective. So much information, you know, that allows a record store to coexist, you know, in making sense into the whole scenario. Maybe you will believe it or not, but we're having like 7, 8 record stores, you know, like in those times, you know, and they were like feeding us with information. Each record store was having its own style, and we were having no CD players in any club. If you play CDs, it was because you play like not electronic music, you know. So it was very easy to absorb and to buy, you know, and you become friend of one record store or the other, and you have your likes, you know. So, amazing, actually, you know. You can really play records if you want, you know. Nowadays it's different. Now we don't have record stores in Chile, or maybe just really few. And our scene is really shrinks to the minimum expression. It's like very complicated now. I was starting to be part of it from the end of an era, you know. Because when big parties start being part of the scenario, it was the beginning of the end, basically. When big events get in, people that are not aware of this culture found it fascinating because it's trendy, you know, and it's becoming something more social, you know, rather than something that is attached to music, that is information, that is culture, is art. And this kills mainly like our scene, you know. And then big parties, you know, start like fighting between each other, you know, like making this like sensation white, or I don't know, a cream fizz, or whatever it is, you know. And this is quite sad, because as I said, like it was a beginning of a big change, you know, in our scene. It was the only point when you realize that maybe it's time to leave and things are not gonna work for you anymore if you really want to keep on the classic way, you know. And this is what happened to me. And from my friends that were like in the same position that didn't do it, mainly all disappeared. So yeah. And some of them tried thinking that it's gonna be different. I'm from the second generation. I'm the only one that is still living in Europe, and some others that were very talented did not want to get out of the country. And then when the scene exploded, not in a good way, these new tech house festivals and whatever, you know, all these little worlds, you know, like merged into a mini scene that were making little parties, you know, which is still existing nowadays. But then the rest gone. When you have a concept and you develop yourself and you are like in the top notch situation, you know, and then you somehow it's not gonna work anymore, and then you go back to your country and there's no doors open for you anywhere. You need to adapt. So I'm feeling grateful that life gives me the chance to keep on pushing myself. I have to say that it was not easy because I had many times the possibility to go bigger, but understanding that this means that I have to disconnect myself from my vision and I have my values, you know, and my perspective, and I will follow sometimes, but mainly I will try to be followed. And if this is the risk that I have to commit with, I will go for it. And I have to say that it was a struggle, you know. But now, after so many years, 47 years old now, I'm happy that I'm reconnecting like big time with the new generation, like with new concepts, like people is really recognizing me. That means that I did a good job, as I said. So yeah, I think there's many years ahead for me, still in the market. Let's see. I was working with Dani Casarano, who's a very good friend of mine, my brother. He's from Switzerland, partner in school with Luciano, and when Luciano was going to Chile, he was inviting him to spend vacations, you know, over there. And then he went to vacation and he stayed 10 years over there, you know. And during this path, you know, like he becomes super famous. And when I went to the capital city, we met in this club, Deck Zero, you know, that I was telling you. And he was coming from a big party, like making the warm up to Yankee XL or something, a super commercial DJ. And he arrives to the club and he saw me playing this music. And he was a bit impressed, realizing like, what the fuck was that? And he just approached to the booth and he says, "Hey, I know I'm blah blah blah. You know, like when you finish, I want to talk to you." You know, I was like, "Oh wow, it's like this guy," you know, like. And then I went out. He was like full of girls and guys, you know, like he was famous, you know, and I was just like a random dude, you know. He invited me to Santiago to play with him in Club La Feria, which is a place that I really, really, really love. And then we become really good friends, and then we start making music together. As I said, Luciano, Ricardo, Dandy, everyone was already living in Europe, coming all in the summer times, like to make parties in New Year's or like in the summer or whatever. Of course, in those times was not the internet of today, so you were just willing to make music and hope someone like try to follow you and to release. Now it's totally different. Now, if you really want to take care of your career, you need to be very strict where you're bringing your music. You really need to be prepared. You really need to develop yourself proper. You cannot make any wrong move, otherwise you are not gonna catch the attention of others. In those times, you didn't care. From those times, there's a lot of releases I'm not really into anymore. I have to say that was, of course, part of the way things were developed, as I said, to become what I am right now. Luciano appears again, you know, in the life of Dani, and he invites him to take a chance, like sending him music, and we were already with Dani bringing music, different levels, whatever. At the same time, Dani decides to leave Chile. He was fed up. Of course, the sound was changing. There was nothing anymore for him over there. The puppy of the second generation as well. So like as soon as he left, I later on, but not so late, following him. Luciano gave him this chance, and Cadenza was very hyped in those times, and we did this track La Tulip. Luciano freaked out with it. It was the beginning of something really, really big. Big clubs, from little scene to a big scene, going to Ibiza, you know, to Amnesia, Pacha, Space, Ushuaia, this and that, like going in the jet, winning a lot of money. And at the same time, I was also getting married. I was making seasons in Europe and coming back, getting depressed, and then going back to Europe, living like the life of a big artist and coming back and getting depressed again, no gigs. And that's when my wife decided that it would be nice that maybe I take the chance to leave Chile. You know? But it was like 2014 when I realized that this is, I mean, 13 when I realized that this is like the place I want to be. And since 2014, I'm properly stayed in Berlin. But I left not feeling comfortable anymore in my country, basically. That was a fact. I mean, like sound change, music change, crowd's perspective change. I thought I was gonna make it because then he left and he gives me the power to me, but then I lost it like in an instant. You know, like I was not able to find my way to be respected as I was when he was there with me, and yeah, it was chaotic. It was really, really, really bad. In the peak of my career, without studio, without family, without nothing, just like coming, you know, like trying to fit myself here in a place where I don't understand the language. And of course, like friends of mine, like Ricardo, like put me in contact with his friends. They become my favorite friends, and they helped me a bit like to construct my new life and everything. But it was like not so easy. I mean, like now I'm comfortable, but it's after 10 years. Yeah. Even though this was having a cost. So saying this, being part of a big scenario like Cadenza, for example, you know, that they were having their sound and I was not really fitting 100% in that sound. I was the weird one inside the agency. When it was over, for me it was a relief because I was already being part of the interest of people that was maybe not absorbing that information anymore. So this gave me the chance to arrive over here and to deliver content because I was always into content. The input that you can receive in a place like this is so high that you keep on developing yourself more and more and more. The only problem was that I was not having a studio anymore. My studio was in Chile, in my house. I had to invest a lot of money in the studio and then I had to leave, and it was there like for a couple of years, and then until I decided to let it go, I sold it for pennies, and then I started constructing again slowly my studio here. But it took me a long time. It took me 5-6 years. Well, I was a bit lost in one point, trying to bring my family over here, and it was a kind of painful as well. And also I was in the top of my career, but also very lost into myself. So it was a bad timing because I can see myself now like in a very good shape, and I think that in those times I could be super good, or also I can be also getting disconnected very fast if I have a problem or an issue in my mind. You know, I was always very delicate emotionally wise. So maybe I was not prepared for success. And then when things went down and I have to rebuild myself, find my way to say, okay, like this is me again, you know. But as I said, it's like a roller coaster. You are here, then you're here, then you're here, then you're here. I need to understand that kind of movements that life are giving you, and understand it's part of the process of you to understand certain meanings. And when you are like ready, you also need to be focused on and understand that you're ready. Otherwise, you lose that moment. And again, you need to get back into this kind of circle until you get back again to that point to rise again, you know. And I think that I get it now. and yeah, let's see how future like hacks me. Yeah. The problem was that I came over here 2014, then the family arrived 2016, so it took me like 2 years to bring them over. That made me understand that I was not a man still, you know. I was like really like connected to my childish side, where I cannot commit to do anything besides music and to push things that are like not making me comfortable with. So until I have to suffer and pass through this, it took me a while. Then when we get out of the pandemic and I start like understanding how things should be done, I had the biggest pain of my life with the death of my mother, that she died in the middle of a tour of mine from a heart attack. And I think this is like the most hardcore thing I had to deal with, which I'm sure I was never gonna recover. It's like the inflection point that makes everything change from something very painful to something very good. You know, like make me become a man somehow, and to have a purpose and to take decisions and to do plans and mastermind my steps until the point that I really know now what I want and what I need to achieve and how I want to achieve this. But as I said, like it took me a long time to understand that. I was like too innocent, I guess. Like I just want to play music, to do some beats and stuff. But I was not understanding that life is hard, and it's very important to understand that this is a job, and you need to really like process it that way, and to find your way to understand also what you want. But because you're all the time in your ego trip, you know, all the time to make things work, you know, social wise, committed to the collective reality that everyone like decide to live and whatever, you are not understanding and you're not seeing how things are for real. You're just like seeing what you want to see. Even though I believe that because things with no explanation for me means that there's a magical, magical meaning underneath, you know, but it's more like transcendental perspective. I started like following these transcendental perspectives for a year, maybe, which of course made me disconnect a bit from this reality. And I did the best music of my life, I have to say, and I'm happy that I touched that maximal thing in my career. But I was also like losing control, you know, losing control of my daily life with my family, with my excesses, and I was a bit toxic at the very end. But it was very cool as a development, as a person. My mother's death had a big meaning in what I became, and I see now as I see it now as a gift. She had to live this life to make me understand many things, you know? And I need to treasure this, uh, and not like feeling so sorry about it anymore. And when I understood this, life started like being nice again. But it took me a while, yes. Since a long time, I decided that daytime is not my thing. There's too many distractions, too much phone calls, too much like needs, family needs and stuff. So I rather prefer to come in the evenings to make music when it's about me. When we're talking about like me and my crafting, my own projects, I like to come in the evenings. Okay, maybe I take a bit of wine, you know, I put the telephone down, come to the studio with no vision or ideas, even though I have to say that many times happens to me that I go to the bed and I start composing tons of harmonies and stuff. And I think that the day after I would come over here with that idea, but they're gone in the morning. We're gonna come over here, all the ideas are gone. I don't have any idea what's gonna happen. So I just like drink over everything. I put everything on. Okay, disaster. Okay, everything down. And I start maybe with a melody or maybe with a bass, start checking things up, you know, and I go randomly going as fast as I can. I'm not overthinking at all, ever. When I was in the hype, maximum hype of my crafting, I was just coming over here, start like making exercises, you know, like, and I can do 1 or 3 tracks per day, easy. Because if you don't like it so much, you know, you can always do another one and another one and another one and another one, while losing time. Because maybe today you're happy, tomorrow you're angry, or you're like, I don't know, like in any kind of state emotionally wise, and then you need to take a picture of that moment the way it is. If you come the day after and you're in another mood, you maybe not gonna like it anymore, or you wanna start retouching it, and this is the end for me. My brain and my heart, which is like the cyclone and the multi-clock, which will allow me to compose quite fast and to be tight in my recordings. Okay, so let's say that I having my jam, and then I go from each machine starting from 0 point. 0 point will be the sound that is part of the jamming, and I will start twisting it over as much as I can, knowing which is my point 0. Okay, so I'm not destroying the dynamics, or I'm not like going so further like with the sound, and then I go back to 0, and I do this with every machine. When I have everything clear, I start recording 1 by 1. I know that's going to be tight enough because the clock is coming from the machine, which is like super tight. It's an analog clock, it's not a digital clock. And then I will twist the sound like how you say, like real time, okay? And then I will feel it. This is the length. Maybe it's a minute, maybe it's 30 seconds, maybe it's 45 seconds, maybe it's 2 minutes, whatever. I'm just gonna tweak, come back to 0, you know? And then I just put like start, I put the channel down, and then it's the same jamming, but with the motionized audio that I record, and I do the same with every machine. So as soon as I finished, every machine is doing random stuff that has different lengths. So combinations are always different. So you have a monster already running over without touching any piece of any kind of like arrangement in your DAW per se, no? Time is limited. So when sound is rising, I don't want to be in the studio anymore, you know? So when I see that person singing or whatever, it's time to go back to the house, but you need to record it, you know? And always in the recording process, you see that something is missing or something needs to be retouched, you know? And that's the only moment from my recordings that I'm able to retouch something. That's it, you know? Every time I try to go back after, I mess things up. It's never the same. So it has to be done the same day. I will never gonna forget like my warm up in Amnesia for Ricardo Luciano, for example. I'm never gonna forget my dating Robert Johnson. I don't know. There's like some incredible mythical moments in Hopetose, incredible mythical moments in Visionaire. I had my amazing nights. I prefer to not say yes to every gig. I prefer to play less, but to be sure that if I go there, I will have a really good time and I will be able to flow and deliver. If I gonna do it just for money, and it's gonna be bad, but I will waste some money, but it's gonna be bad. The only thing that is gonna be wrong the day after is gonna be me overthinking if this, what I should do the rest of my life is this, not this kind of feeling that is like not cool enough. And I'm doing this because I really like it. I'm not doing this because it's giving me a lot of money, or otherwise I will be working in something else. You know, art it's complicated. You know, you can be in the top of the mountain, top of the hill, and you can be in the underneath the sea like this. I prefer to play in spots where I know that I will shine, basically, rather than going to spots where I will win more. Of course, you need to find a balance, but shining is also like feeding the soul in so many ways. It's like making you like, wow, like saying it's like so beautiful, you know, you get connected, you show yourself, you know, like so like deeply of who you are, like to the rest, you know. And then when the party's over, people come to you and say, hey, it was so beautiful, thanks so much for the music, it was amazing. And then you say, hey, thank you, thanks so much. and then it's like a balm for the spirit, for the soul. No? Okay, so if I need to build a box with a message inside the box and throw it into the sea, so someone in the future can find it or say, okay, like wow, I found this message from like ancient times, like from like this guy called Felipe Valenzuela that says that we should behave this way or do things this way. Well, I can say that it's very important to be committed to yourself. You should understand that art is very personal, okay? And because it's very personal, it means that you don't need to understand that art. What only matters is that you are free. In the moment that you're not free, you're becoming a slave of a perspective from someone else's. And this is boring, this is not cool, you will be average, you will be not delivering anything new, nothing special. It's not gonna be you talking, it's gonna be your slave side talking about like what someone else would like to see, to listen. So yeah, that will be my message, I guess, like to get involved with your own, to try from your deepest inner self, project what's like goosebumping you somehow, and to not be afraid of expressing it. When you make a track, it should be an cinematic of that moment, because that moment was unique. And in that unique moment, you develop an idea that's never gonna come again in that way. That form of expression, I think, is also part of how art should be understood.